fly. That's about another, after a lot of content.
All right, be careful on this cord here.
And then what I did was sort of child, and he's became in fourth grade.
All right, folks, I think we're gonna get started here. The Nebraska Iowa MUFON meeting for this month. Welcome. A scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. As the world's oldest and largest UFO phenomena investigative body, we aim to be the inquisitive mind seeking answers to the most ancient question: are we alone in the universe? Just some humorous picture I found. The Nebraska team's made of Kyle Finley, state director, Fred Zewe is assistant state director, Tamara Steyer, chief investigator, John Barter, field investigator, Maxwell Hobbs, field investigator trainee, and Dave Paris and Dr. Kasher are both consultants for Nebraska. The Iowa team's made up of myself, Greg Anderson as state director, Dave Kreider's chief investigator, Larry Moore, field investigator, Beverly Moore, ERT representative, field investigator, Keen Tiedemann, field investigator, and Marty Burrows is our latest, and he's a field investigator trainee. And Dave Pratt's off the list. He decided to retire from MUFON, so he'll be missed. MUFON News. Dave McDonald comes out with a monthly statement, and this month he said the definitive choice for civilian reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena. In the ever-evolving dialogue surrounding unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, the need for a legitimate civilian arm of investigation and reporting has never been more crucial. And as the world's oldest and largest UFO investigating agency, the Mutual UFO Network stands as the undisputed leader in this field, ensuring comprehensive disclosure and reporting for both civilians and government agencies alike. Established on May 31st, 1969, MUFON has continuously served as the vanguard of UFO research and investigation. With over 7,000 members worldwide, a corporate office staffed with dedicated professionals, and a distinguished board of directors, MUFON boasts an unparalleled infrastructure dedicated to the pursuit of the truth regarding UAP encounters. One of MUFON's most significant assets is its comprehensive UFO case management system, CMS, comprising over 100,000 documented cases. Additionally, MUFON maintains a robust network of over 700 fully trained and equipped active field investigators in all 50 and 46 other countries, a rapid response STAR team, and an underwater dive team, ensuring comprehensive examination of UFO cases. I'll cut to the chase. Not only do they take our job seriously, but we are committed to providing accurate, thorough investigations into UAP encounters. We'll continue to press the attack in solving the UFO mystery. Recently, MUFON has been the target of a high-level cyber attack, underscoring the organization's significance and the threat it poses to those who seek to obscure the truth. Despite the adversity, however, MUFON remains steadfast in its mission commitment. Furthermore, MUFON's influence extends beyond its history and subscription channel, beyond its investigative efforts. With its annual UFO Symposium, the Hangar One TV show on the history, and the subscription channel MUFON TV, the organization actively educates the public and disseminates crucial information regarding the UAP subject. Recently, MUFON launched a Project Aquarius, unveiling archives dating back to the 60s, containing 8,867 files previously unseen by any other UFO research organization. This initiative marks a significant milestone in the quest for understanding and underscores MUFON's dedication to transparency and enlightenment. With over 300 members in legislative bodies who receive quarterly reports from MUFON, as well as the largest social media following in comparison to its competitors, MUFON is uniquely positioned, as I noted above, to help resolve the UFO problem once and for all. Yeah. Now, since we had that cyber attack and MUFON has been, the CMS has been down for a while, these are the last numbers that we got. This was from last year, so we had those numbers. Iowa had 52 cases and 25 for Nebraska that we investigated.
What was the date for the CMS going down?
February. It went down in February. I want to say 8th, but that
So they would have January cases, but we just don't have the data.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you got it.
Yeah, right. So we got 3 and 4. Kind of bleak there, you know. Here's the 2023 monthly case count, and you can see, yeah, the red is Nebraska and Iowa's blue. And 2024 monthly case count, again, kind of bleak. We don't have any February, March, or April numbers to report.
Push for Nebraska to be red in the future charts. Go big red. We'll be living on.
Okay, it's red in this chart. This is, again, this is last year's compared to previous years. So we were about average about last year. And again, then this year. Here's the MUFON, our Nebraska Iowa MUFON meeting numbers have gone up quite a bit.
Well, I put the symposiums, March 1.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, in March, we had a symposium here at UNO and for the Nebraska. And
I think I put about 83.
we had quite a few people. It was a good turnout.
The people there and nobody that I recognize. Boy, it's a good turnout.
And here's the, these are our numbers for our standings. Every month they come out with the standings on the, where each state ranks, and Iowa was 19th with their cases and Nebraska was 31st. And we were both at 100%. The case review. Well, the little sad face here is the fact that we don't have any actual CMS cases to go over. But yeah, yeah, I could make up some. Well, you know. But anyway, I think we'll talk about the New Fork cases here first. We'll start with Nebraska. And all 3 of these cases in Nebraska happened in the Omaha area. So that's why you see all the stars over there. The first one occurred on February 20th, 2024, and it was near above Hummel Park in Omaha, Nebraska. The shape was a rectangle, and the color was black, and it had lights on the object, changed color, landed, missing time. It says, all I can really remember when I looked at it, there were lights, blinking red, then yellow, white lights that didn't blink, almost like a normal airplane. When it wasn't moving still, at first it looked small, but it at the same time looked huge, bigger than all the trees put together. We heard a scream, then a rush of wind blew sand in my face. And after I had said something very weird, then we were just driving. And these are all coming from the New Fork, the National UFO Reporting Center, it's Peter Davenport's organization. The second New Fork case we have here is
on the first case. What was the time and date on that one?
That was at February 20th, 2024. 2024 at 11 p.m.
Oh, and where's Hubble Park? It's, way up north of Omaha.
Right. This next one happened in the Omaha area. It was on February 5th, 2024 at 6:28 in the morning. And the shape was, it was a formation, white lights. So the V formation of lights moving rapidly from the southwest and then turning southeast towards Offutt Air Force Base. Around 6 a.m. Central Time today, I was right outside my front door on the walkway. I was outside just to see what the weather was like at the time and was walking back to the front door when I saw a V formation of lights. The lights came into view suddenly, just past the southwest corner of my house. There were 5 lights in an unequal formation. The left side of the formation had 1 light, then 1 light at the center point or tip of the V, and the right side of the V had the other 3 lights. The lights were about as bright as a star that you would see in the night sky. The lights did not blink or flash or any at all. They remained solid. The formation moved very rapidly, slightly faster than a low-flying jet, but made no sound. The formation moved across the sky from approximately the southwest and then turned slightly to the southeast before going out of view. The direction of the object turned towards was in the direction of Offutt Air Force Base. When the object turned to the right, all the lights turned with it, as though there were lights on the wing. I had thought at first that the formation was low-flying planes from Offutt, as we do occasionally get low-flying planes like the WC-135R in shape and size. However, this did not make any noise and disappeared before it reached the horizon. Typically, when a plane from Offutt or any other plane flies overhead, I continue to watch it until it reaches the horizon. The way the formation appeared and disappeared was like how the International Space Station is visible when it can be viewed in my area, only showing briefly for a few seconds to a minute, then disappearing, never making it to the horizon. However, the International Space Station does not turn and does not move as fast as a low-flying plane in the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, good report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his location that he said he saw it from?
He was near Offutt. Yeah, it doesn't give an exact location. He was just somewhere near Offutt, or it was flying toward Offutt. Yeah, you should. The third Nebraska case, also in the Omaha area, no exact location given, but this happened also on the 5th of February on 2024 at 4:55 in the morning. Look, it says flying at flight level 390, then flight level 410 approaching Omaha. So this was actually somebody that was flying a plane that was in the sky on a Part 135 flight from KNI to KTEB with 2 passengers and 3 crew. The shape was, it was a light, color was white, and distance they thought was 50 to 100 nautical miles away. They estimated the speed that it was greater than 1,000 miles an hour. It said flying to the east at 39,000, saw 6 UFOs at different speeds, altitudes between 50 and 80,000 feet for approximately 1 hour. We're flying a Challenger 601 from Van Nuys to Teterboro, New Jersey. We were flight level 390 and quickly turned to flight level 410, we saw 6 UFOs at different times and together as different altitudes, different spacing, different speeds, and they were just white lights, no identifiable markings, and the distance was indeterminable, but somewhere between 50 and 100 miles ahead of us, and we saw them as we approached, we're approaching Omaha, Nebraska, and again, we saw them for about another hour. They tried recording the video with the DJI Action 2 camera, but due to operator error, aiming, or distance involved, no helpful video, only a voice description. Now, this is similar to another sightings that we had that was reported in Iowa, where they were flying from, this time they were flying from Chicago to over to the opposite direction to the LA area, and they saw lights in front of them, and they had some video and some other lights, and I've reported on that at past meetings. I've reported on that particular case. It was kind of odd, though. As I was reading through, I really didn't come to the conclusion. It said they were flying at 39,000. And they were flying. They only supposedly had 2 passengers. You know, that was like, I don't know. It just seemed odd. That must have been somebody really rich person, you know, that yeah, a corporate jet of some type. Yeah. Okay, this next one, the first case it will be is from Johnston, which is this center star right above Des Moines here. This happened on March 5th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Johnston, Iowa, in the distant sky north and of the above address. It said it was oval in shape. Its colors was greenish. The estimated speed was perhaps the same as the ISS. A fixed cluster of greenish lights traveling from east to west in the northern sky. At approximately 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, I observed an oval cluster of greenish lights going from east to west across the sky north of Des Moines. I've seen the SpaceX satellites, and these weren't traveling in a straight single file line. The illumination must have come from the sun because the illumination faded from view as they passed through the trees. They looked like a large flock of birds, but they were lit up and appeared to be flying at high altitude. It's possible that they were attached to a single aircraft, but it looked like they were flying independently. Then this next case from Iowa, it was just to the west of Des Moines in Waukee, and that happened on March 1st, 2024 at 2200 or 10 p.m. The shape was a cross. The color was a dark gray. It says, I was outside watching stars and planes. While looking at the stars, I observed a gray item flying northwest. I would guess the item was about 3,000 feet. The object was dark and hard to see in the night sky. I watched it for about 10 seconds. The craft did not make any noise. I immediately checked flight tracker, and there was not a plane nearby at the moment. All right, this third Iowa case, this was from Green, Iowa, which is the upper star here. Green, Iowa.
Been through that.
Yeah, and that happened on February 28th and it was at 8 local time, at 8 in the morning. It says, saw silver sphere hanging over the street and stayed less than 5 seconds and flew off. It said, driving back home to Traer Street toward the Lutheran church from downtown when I saw a silver sphere hanging over the street. It stayed still and hung for about 5 seconds, then flew off to the east quickly. Another person walking also saw it. It was silver with the sun shining off it. It was hard to tell the size and distance. When it moved, it was fast. As it went east, it got smaller in the distance. I was sitting still, and when I noticed it, it took off quickly to the east. That would have been a nice case to have, especially since it had 2 witnesses, especially if you could interview both the witnesses. This next one is Marion, Iowa, and Marion is kind of a suburb of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And this happened on February 26th of 2024 at 9:26 in the evening. It was shaped like a chevron, and its color was white. It was a partial V shape. It looked up, and I seen a partial V-type object moving southwest to the northeast around 9:25 p.m., moving very fast and lasted less than 6 seconds before going out of sight. So let's see what we got here. Got some highlights here. But okay, back up. There we go. This is a just recently I went to the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference in Eureka Springs, and here's a video that's we're going to show that just a little bit of a news clip about it.
Shared the sounds.
Okay.
I always forget to do that when we have a comment too.
Yeah.
Oh.
26. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, correction. CMS went down February 26th, not the 8th. I don't know where I got that date from. Thanks, Dave.
Stop sharing. Sharing. Okay, it's not there. Share sound.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Or get a million comments. I can't hear anything.
All right. So here we go.
Hopefully it will.
Welcome back, everyone. UFO experts and enthusiasts from across the globe made their way to Eureka Springs this weekend for the 36th annual Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. The conference attracts thousands of people to Eureka Springs every year for panel discussions and world-renowned researchers. 5 News photojournalist Joel Katner has a look at what keeps people coming back.
This is one of the longest running UFO conferences in the world. I very much enjoy coming here to Arkansas and immersing myself in this event. It really is a very friendly conference and lots of fascinating things going on.
It's 19 or 20 years I've been doing this show. People always got to take something back to work because they're the crazy UFO people going to the show, so they have to have that on their desk.
There's a real hunger for this subject, a real desire to get to the bottom of this. And the people here, it's a vindication for them, because for years, I think even family and friends and work colleagues would just kind of give them a little smile and say, oh, you're off to a UFO conference. Well, now it's, oh, you're off to a UFO conference. I saw that Congress was doing something on that.
I think it's real important for the people that need to talk about things that they saw or don't understand. And this is the place you can come and people will listen to you. A couple times there was the tinfoil hat wearers, but most of the time everybody's down to earth.
And I think coming to an event like this is a chance to have some fun, but it's also a chance to really get up to speed on what's going on.
I'll be back next year.
All right. And during that's, it's usually, I mean, that the video showed a few people there, but it's a lot more crowded than that during the regular symposium. There's a lot of people, maybe about I don't know, there are several hundred people that show up to it every year. And Forrest Crawford is the master of ceremonies on that. And he recently was on a MUFON, Missouri MUFON meeting, talking about some things he had seen in his past. And some of the speakers this year were William Konkoleski. He was the Michigan MUFON state director, and he talks about his experiences, and he's got a couple books out. His encounters from the age of 2, and he was pretty entertaining speaker. Then, of course, you had the person you saw there was Nick Pope, and he's an author, journalist, and TV personality, and he is also the former UK Minister of Defense investigating UFOs. I talked to him a little bit. Then that night, on Friday night, the Sean Cahill was supposed to be the keynote speaker, but he was sick. You might know Sean from the 2017 the Tic Tac incident in that area of stuff. But who replaced him was a person named Rob Heatherly, and he talked about Wikipedia controlled by different groups and how that they change. Rob Heatherly is the ancient history and UFO UAP researcher, co-host of Military Witnesses 2 UAP on YouTube. He's a retired structural engineer, cost estimator, and U.S. Marine. And he says, I have an avalanche of evidence I've compiled over 3 months now, and in the process of submitting to senior Wiki board members to give them notice of coordinated character assassination, hijacking Wikipedia to further the self-sealing skeptical agenda. Some skeptics under aliases source themselves outside of Wiki as reliable sources. I'm not going to stop until Wikipedia executives evaluate the documentation. I've spent months tediously compiling to prove several sock puppets accounts and the conflict of interest, which is collectively causing a significant computational harm of living persons they disagree with. And then,
So he was a presenter at the conference?
right, he replaced Sean Cahill as the keynote speaker on Friday night and stuff. Anyways, for those that haven't heard of sock puppetry or meat puppetry, the sock puppetry takes various forms. It's logging out to make problematic edits as an IP address, creating new accounts to avoid detection or sanctions, using other person's accounts, piggybacking, reviving old unused accounts, sometimes referred to as sleepers, and presenting them as different users, persuading friends or colleagues to create accounts for the purpose of supporting one side of the dispute, usually called meat puppetry. And let's go back to, all right.
So was this person also a Wikipedia editor, or?
Yeah, these people have gone in as and like Nick West, the picture that was before this, that Nick West, there's Rob on the left. He was the presenter. Nick West is one of the people that has been is part of that group, the guerrilla skeptics and stuff. And talking about them a little bit, Susan Gerbic she's an American studio photographer who became known as a scientific skepticism activist, mostly for exposing people claiming to be mediums, and a columnist for Skeptical Inquirer. She's co-founder of the Monterey County Skeptics and a fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. Now, she they had formed a group. Much of her activism, the guerrilla skeptics, was consisted of organizing sting operations against people claiming to be mediums. She's a group of volunteers calling themselves guerrilla skeptics, would set up fake Facebook profiles, then visit mediums claiming to be receiving messages from subjects on the profiles, and Gerbich's team would record the session and post the evidence online. She essentially started out with the medium and the other stuff, and then a group, there's several editors or people that they've got as part of their group that are working on the UFO subject now and trying to discredit that. Gerbich founded the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia group of editors who create and edit Wikipedia articles that reflect skepticism. The New York Times Magazine reported in February of 2019 in an interview with Gerbich that her skeptics on Wikipedia had 144 editors that had worked on nearly 900 Wikipedia pages. And says on Wikipedia, sock puppetry or socking refers to the misuse of multiple Wikipedia accounts to maintain accountability and increase community trust. Editors are generally expected to use only one account. Well, there are some valid reasons for maintaining multiple accounts. It is improper to use multiple accounts to deceive or mislead other editors, disrupt discussions or distort consensus, avoid sanctions, evade blocks, or otherwise violate community standards. Now, this is an example of one of the editors called Lucky Louie, where he removed all the stuff in red was removed, essentially about Ross Coulthart. You've heard of him recently, that he's a News Nation reporter that does a lot of stuff.
Like a pair of glasses.
Essentially, it removed the part about him being an investigative journalist. He's worked in public relations and an advocate, and idea that governments are covering up knowledge. So he's a multi-award winning, over 3 decades. It removed all the good stuff about him, and you can see on this right part of the slide, it's talked about him being a 5-time winner of Australia's top journalism prize, the Walkley Award, including the highest award, the Gold Walkley. He's also the winner of the Logie Australian TV's top prize for best public relations. So this is just an example of what the editors go in and do, and they go in and make these changes, and then they can't be undone, or it's very hard to get something undone or put back to right on the Wikipedia. So that's essentially, like I said, that was Rob Heatherly's presentation that he had at Eureka Springs.
That's a pretty interesting one, because I know I think at the state meetings, they were talking about the Wikipedia for MUFON being edited, and then nobody can edit it back to be correct.
Right.
We don't have anybody Wikipedia editors for,
Right.
for us. Maybe that's something MUFON should look into, and get the lobbyists, they're paying a lobbyist, maybe we can have a Wikipedia editor.
We'll get another denial of service attack if that happens. Then on Saturday, the speakers were Lee Williams. He's an investigative reporter, and he was investigating UFOs with the world's foremost UFO scientist. He was an interesting speaker. But then Penny Kelly, she was an experiencer. Her speech was called Assignment Earth, and it was about her spontaneous awakening of Kundalini in 1979 and a 3-year period of unlimited consciousness. So she had a different take on things from an experiencer point of view. Then Mark D'Antonio was there. I think a lot of you know Mark D'Antonio's a astronomer and he's a photo video analyst, but you see him on TV all the time on several The Proof Is Out There and other programs. And he talked about ET civilization will have to be able to cross the vast gulf between the stars, and he kind of talked about interdimensional propulsion and talked about traveling between dimensions. Of course, Mark's a very entertaining speaker and stuff. Then that keynote speaker on Saturday night was Kevin Day. He's a retired U.S. Navy chief senior petty officer, and his was on unraveling the truth behind the Nimitz Tic Tac incident, and along with Sean Cahill. But Kevin was there. Kevin had really had this kind of an emotional presentation. I mean, you can see that things have really affected him and stuff since that time. And one of the things, kind of a side note on his presentation, he created his presentation using AI, to the Chat GPT and the OpenAI. So that was kind of different. Then on Sunday's speaker, there was one speaker which I didn't get to see. I had to head back up to home, so I didn't get to see it. But like I said, every year it's a great conference, and there's a lot of people that go to it. So
Way back in the day, they had Rick Mopel and Richard Doylan and all those.
Yeah.
They were always there, you know, so they always have.
Right.
Trust,
Yeah.
UFO phenomena, but they don't come anymore. I don't know why.
well, I think possibly the big headliners like Dolan and Linda Moulton Howe, they don't have, they charge more now. Plus, there are so many more organizations that are trying to get speakers to speak. So their schedules are just tied up unless you get, you really have to work hard to get them.
$5,000 for Nick Pope.
Yeah.
Really? Well, yeah.
That was back in the day. I only probably 10,000 now, you know.
Yeah.
They would always come, but they know that Lou, what was the guy's name that had it, Lou somewhere or other?
Lou Farish.
Lou, yeah. It was nonprofit, so.
Yeah.
These boys are profit oriented, so
Yeah.
they're not gonna pay everybody,
Yeah.
whatever, you know, but it was gonna be nonprofit. And I think since they were always there, they kind of maybe pro bono it and
Yeah.
worked on with that, going there with Lou was working it, so.
Okay.
Get another chat up there.
Let's go to the next. And so what I did was I went down early down south to actually film the eclipse, try to find a spot where it was going to be 100%. And this was kind of like the setup I had for the eclipse. My camera is the OM Systems OM1, the new OM1, not the 1970s version, which, I had it back in that day. But I had a 300 millimeter f4 lens on it with a 1.4 teleconverter and a neutral density filter of 100,000. So you can see it's got a pretty dark filter on it. So that's essentially 840 millimeter equivalent. And it also has, you can kind of see it here a little, an articulating screen on it. And I had live view so that I could actually track the sun better since I didn't have a tracking system. The hardest part about the whole setup was getting that 840 millimeters to on the sun itself. But anyway, here's one of the pictures. This is, you can barely see it, but there's right here in the corner, this is when the moon just starts to eclipse the sun. And there's a couple of little sunspots, one here and one over here that you can see on the sun. And that was like 4,000th of a second, f11 ISO 3200. This one's the where the sun, the moon is eclipsing it more. So you can, and a lot of times, what you see on the pictures is you see these yellow, where they've got the yellow eclipse and stuff. That's because they're using a solar filter, and I was using the neutral density filter. So that's why mine are all the same black and white, or the whatever true color was. Here's one when it was getting kind of a crescent toward the eclipse.
Pretty crisp.
Yeah. And then this is just before it eclipsed. And here's the eclipse itself. And you can see I using live view, I was able to just take the speed down to 1/250th of a second, and I could look at the exposure on the live view, and I could tell if I was going to get a good picture or not. And you can see these solar prominences. There's these red marks. That was kind of neat. I couldn't see them with my bare, looking through my eclipse glasses, but you could see it on the picture later. And then this one is essentially the diamond ring picture, not, that I took. That was at a 500th of a second. And you can see, again, these solar prominences kind of on each side of that, the sun. And then there's kind of a close-up of it. Of one of the, yeah, solar prominences. And here's the, I know people are probably getting tired of seeing eclipse pictures.
I haven't, so I've seen really.
Yeah, right. So anyway, this was as it was starting to look like the crescent moon, but it was starting to go away. And that was the last one I took. So any questions or anything about how taking those pictures?
Excellent pictures.
Thank you. That I practiced, the only ones I could practice were the ones where I could take the picture of the sun with the neutral density filter. And so I got my exposures about right, but then I had to count on that live view when it went the total eclipse, because I had no idea what I was going to need to do there. And of course, and I had to take that neutral density filter off before I could take the total eclipse pictures also, and then put it back on right away after it anyway, it was a lot of fun doing it. And I was part of like I said, I went down there. I was going down to the Eureka Springs Conference anyway. So I spent that whole week down in the South there, and it rained like crazy in Texas, but yeah, it was fun.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So you got I know we were talking about the new camera on the Thursday meetings. I forget what it's called.
Psionics?
Yeah, the Psionic. Now you didn't use that camera, right? This is a different camera?
No, that was the one that was on the tripod in the picture I was showing you.
That was a Psionic?
No, that was the OM1.
Yeah.
The OM Systems OM1.
So why didn't you use the Psionic one, I guess?
Because that's for like doing night vision stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, and stuff. And yeah, I didn't even know if you can buy filters for it or not. Yeah, no, I wanted to take this. Now, this is kind of an ongoing series of that we've had. This is the third installment of the UFO UAP Iowa Nebraska history, and unless you want to present your stuff, you want to do this last.
No, we can go ahead. Yeah, I think we're good.
This will take about what? 10, yeah. All righty.
Roger, Tom is on Come, she's not here.
Okay,
I haven't talked to her.
this is probably the most famous Nebraska case that they have. And this happened on December 3rd, 1967. Herb Schirmer abduction. He was a police sergeant and he was abducted. Is, like I said, most famous event, and it was investigated by the Condon Committee. And his story was that 22-year-old Herb Schirmer would have a bizarre experience on December 3rd, 1967, while making his normal patrol rounds in Ashland, Nebraska. He saw what appeared to be red lights atop a large truck. He had checked locations along Highway 6 and had just hit the intersection of two highways, 6 and 63. When he saw the red lights, he would get a closer look. As he moved on down Highway 63, he came to a stop and shined his headlights on the red lighted object. He immediately knew the object was no truck. The bed beaming lights were coming through what Schirmer described as portholes. He could clearly see a disc-shaped metallic UFO that was hovering about 8 feet off the ground. The polished aluminum object had a type of walkway around the circumference. He could also see what he thought were large legs between the objects. The UFO began to send flames below it. As it rose into the air, Schirmer could hear a siren sound coming from the object as it rode higher and higher. The UFO then passed directly over his police car and flew out of sight. Schirmer sped back to the police station, making a note at the time at 3 a.m. This shocked him because he knew that he'd been on patrol much longer than the 10 minutes the present time indicated. Schirmer made the following entry into his logbook. Saw a flying saucer at the junction of Highway 6 and 63, believe it or not. And Schirmer began to experience some physical problems right after his sighting. He suffered from headaches, felt ill, and had a red welt on his neck. And the Condon Commission, located at the University of Colorado, and at the time investigating UFO sightings, heard Schirmer's sightings and had requested that he come to Boulder, Colorado on February 13th, 1968. Schirmer also went regressive hypnosis administered by psychologist Dr. Leo Sprinkle at the University of Wyoming. And his first session with Dr. Sprinkle, here's the reported findings. The police car stalled or stopped. The headlights went off during the sighting. Schirmer was prevented from taking his gun out during the sighting. He was prevented from using his police radio. A bright light was emitted from the object and shone upon the car. He observed a white blurred object which came from the object and approached the car. It was apparently an intelligent organism. Some sort of conversation with the white object took place by some means of mental communications. Communications with someone in the craft occurred at the time of the UFO sighting, and the feeling of direct mental contact with someone was occurring at the time of the interview with the study group. Information was obtained which indicated that the craft was propelled by some sort of electrical or magnetic force, which could control the force of gravity. The craft was obtaining a power supply from nearby power lines in order to assist in communications. The craft belonged to a sister ship, which was like an aircraft carrier. The occupants of the craft were based on Venus or Saturn, but were from another galaxy. The intention of the beings were friendly, and their purpose was to prevent Earth people from destroying the Earth. And Schirmer was told that he was doing a good job and that he would talk further, that he should not talk further during the interview, but he could talk later that year and talk more about the events of the UFO sighting. And Dr. Sprinkle ended his report. It said, in my opinion, the events described by Sergeant Schirmer are true in his experience. However, I believe that the present evidence does not answer the questions regarding the source, method, and purpose of communicating the additional information. In the committee, they concluded that the evaluation of psychological assessment tests, the lack of any evidence, and interviews with the patrolmen left project staff with no confidence that the troopers' reported UFO experience was physically real. And it said psychologist Dr. Sprinkle, however, felt that Schirmer believed in the reality of the events he described. And then on his second session, this happened in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and hypnotist Loring G. Williams did a regression. He saw 3 telescoping legs on the bottom, an entity standing in front of the cruiser held in its hand what seemed to envelop the cruiser with a gaseous green substance. An entity pointed a device at the windshield, and a bright flash paralyzed Schirmer and caused him to black out. When he came to, one of the entities grabbed him by the neck and caused him great pain, a red welt on his neck. And they asked him if he was a watchman over the town. He replied that he was a policeman. He was asked if the nearby power plant was the only source of power for the area, and he answered that it was. He was asked if he wanted to board the craft, and when he did, they told him it was powered by reversible electromagnetism, which was something to do with gravity. He recalled being inverted but otherwise similar version of the star map drawn by Betty Hill. The entities told him that they know that they're being seen too frequently and were trying to confuse the public's mind. They wore a tight-fitting one-piece uniform with gloves and boots. The uniform had a patch showing a snake with wings on the left side. They had a small antenna sticking up on one side above the right ear. They only eat vegetables and fruit, no meat. And the observation craft collected plant and animal samples. He was informed they picked up cows, dead bodies of animals, and some people, and they were used for experiments. He said there were books that looked like logbooks on the table that had symbols like the stuff you see in movies about Egypt. He was escorted out of the craft and walked back to his cruiser as the 4 humanoids re-entered the craft. And he had, after that, he had personal problems. When he returned to his duties in Ashland, Chief Washland had resigned, and Schirmer was appointed as the new chief. But because of the ridicule from the citizens and the UFO experience, he was not able to rightfully perform his duties and resigned 2 months later. Someone had thrown dynamite into his patrol car, and his wife left him during that time. So that was the Schirmer event. Like I said, that was it. Nebraska's #1 event in the past. Any questions? Nope.
Yeah, that one's famous enough. When we had our archive of all the newspaper articles, the guy from England emailed me and he wanted, he said they had a copy of the newspaper, but it was bad quality. And so he emailed me and he's like, I see you got something in your Ogden collection. Could you send me up a copy to you? And, so I went through, I found, we have a newspaper article that has the whole thing on it. And then I took a picture and sent it to him, up in England, and I guess he's happy with it. So, I mean, it's funny that people around the world apparently know about this case. They can find our group and contact me and, oh yeah, we want to know more about this.
Yeah.
I think this case could have been as good as Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, but it was suppressed by the Conning report and other things going on at that time. I think it could have been on one of the top 10 UFO hit lists,
Yeah.
around the nation.
Yeah, I just recently, speaking of Travis Walton, I just recently ran across some older APRO bulletins and other stuff that I've got articles on Travis Walton. I'll have to bring that in sometime. This next one was the only Iowa case that I had from that time frame. But 3 people at the this happened on June 5th of 1969. 3 people at the Cedar Rapids Airport reported seeing a blue circular object with no wings streaking east to west at an altitude less than 1,000 feet. They estimated that the speed to be about 300 to 400 miles an hour. There were other sightings in Iowa that same night from Des Moines to Omaha, so of that object. So that was an interesting that it had multiple sightings on that particular night. Let's go. Let's see. You didn't add anything in here, did you?
No.
Okay. Do we have that email that I sent that?
Yeah, I've got that clip.
Yeah. I guess we'll come back to this on the upcoming events and stuff.
We have the camera talk about the Bigfoot conference.
Actually, or some of that other stuff you had was in an older presentation. That last presentation we did.
All right.
Yeah.
And what do you want to say about this one?
This is just some recent video from News Nation, just something that I'd never heard of, the Kona report. So the Kona Blue program. So we'll play that.
Kona Blue have anything to do with the program David Grush says exists? News Nation's Joe Khalil is here now with more. Joe, there is a tiny credibility question here. The Pentagon has been saying for the past year there was never any such reverse engineering program. Now it says, oh, there was one, but it never really got started.
Yeah, I mean, there were rumors about this program, the codename Kona Blue, for a long time now. And it was only last month that they acknowledged for the first time ever that it existed. Now we are getting an inside look at how this program was propped up. So it's called Kona Blue. It is real. It was a special access program, very highly classified. It was proposed from the Pentagon to the Department of Homeland Security. We now have all of these declassified documents, and in them, it describes the purpose of the program as, and I'm going to quote here, acquiring, studying, and engineering technology that the U.S. got from UAPs, or UFOs. In the documents, it refers to them as AAVs, Advanced Aerospace Vehicles. Ultimately, the program was scrapped by the Department of Homeland Security, but not before years of planning went into it from the Pentagon, and it describes in detail how they stood the program up. They set a budget, $12 million to $15 million the first year, going all the way up to $50 million down the road. And the program in these documents now also makes specific reference to locations in Nevada where some material may be housed. It also references recovered UAP material, personnel with knowledge of recovered technology, and also personnel who know of the whereabouts of this. And just lastly, if you think this sounds too sci-fi, or that this was maybe 1 or 2 rogue employees at the Pentagon, in these documents it also shows that the Undersecretary of Science and Technology signed off on this program and approved it, saying in these documents that it was a necessary step for national security. So all of that is in here now. We did get a response from the Department of Homeland Security today, and they said simply, quote, while this program was considered under a prior administration, it was never fully established by the Department of Homeland Security. DHS has released these classified documents consistent with its commitment to transparency. So, Elizabeth, it looks like we now have some very clear specifics about what was in this, at least proposal for this plan from the Pentagon.
Wait, you mentioned some budget figures there in the tens of millions of dollars. Was that money ever spent? Was money ever spent on Blue Kona?
I don't believe the money was spent. The money was effectively sort of earmarked within the DoD's budget or the Pentagon's budget, but the program, to my understanding, was scrapped before that money was spent because it was allocated specifically for year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 3 being an expectation for what they would need at that point.
And what do we make of the fact that they keep talking about locations in Nevada and material being housed in Nevada? What is that a reference to?
Yeah, that was really interesting. So it was referencing locations where the program was scoping out for if they had recovered these types of material or pieces of recovered vehicle, where they may be housed, where they may be kept. They were bringing on a scientific team to study and do that kind of thing. So they were literally already scoping out locations where that type of work was going to happen, and it's all laid out there in these now declassified documents, right in black and white.
All right, Joe Khalil reporting live from Capitol Hill. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider.
Do they ever do analysis? What is the video they're showing in here, this floating thing?
Oh, yeah, that
Looks like a balloon.
Yeah. That was over Iraq, or not, yeah.
Did anybody do like analysis on it?
Yeah, they've done analysis. They kind of said it was balloons. They got, it kind of goes from light to dark. It's kind of an infrared picture, and it's the way the exposure on the camera was changing, was causing it to go from light to dark.
Oh, okay.
And I think since they've decided that it was balloons that they actually saw. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was at night too, and if something was just floating over you in the dark, you might not see it.
Mitch said it was called jellyfish.
Yeah, it was like jellyfish like. They have come out with a picture of some like balloons that had stuff hanging on it that kind of looked like it too. So
So if it was a balloon, how could you not see it?
it was at night. This was an infrared.
nighttime.
It was at nighttime. This is infrared.
Well, the only thing I'd say
Yeah.
about that is it's speed that it's traveling, if it's balloons.
Yeah.
It is the smoothest, non-rotating balloon in the air that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like I said, it looks more like a drone being flown. I can see if that was a drone carrying something, much more than.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it was balloons for sure. I'm just saying that they thought it was balloons. So.
Swamp gas, Roger just said swamp gas, right?
Yeah.
And then
Do you have access to that presentation?
Was there anything in there that you thought I should?
You had all that stuff about social media and all.
Yeah, did I cover it last time or no?
I don't remember if you did or not.
I thought I did.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go back to,
Yeah.
do you want to do upcoming events?
Yeah, we can do the upcoming events.
Close out a little bit early, maybe.
That's just,
You go do yours, and then we'll have Tamara do the Bigfoot one.
this is the right now the upcoming events here in for MUFON are our July symposium, which will be held down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area at the Airport Marriott, July 11th through the 14th.
$79.
Yeah.
Then it also gives you a free subscription to the MUFON Journal.
Yeah, $79 for the journal.
I don't know, but they sent me a thing, and when I saw that, I thought, well, rather drive all
Yeah.
the way up there, if I can zoom it, and,
So then, anyway, that's that part of the meetings, I guess we're done with.
You want, your Iowa meeting's coming up.
Yeah, well, the May 4th, in West Des Moines, Iowa, we'll have our next Iowa meeting at the library there, at the West Des Moines Library. So anybody interested in that area can, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah. Talk about the.
Be happy to see you there. And now I guess we're gonna have Tamara come up and give a presentation.
Well, just an announcement.
Or an announcement. Okay, just an announcement. Let me stop the share.
Perhaps a good time is not coming.
Okay, well, thank you. Next weekend is the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. That will be in Grand Island, Nebraska. It's Friday, the 26th and Saturday, the 27th. There'll be speakers on the 26th and then a movie, actually 2 movies Friday night, and there'll be speakers on Saturday as well. And it's at Fauner Park, so, which is in the Aurora Cooperative Pavilion. So it's basically the State Fairgrounds in Grand Island. So we have a good group of speakers, and we have a bigger crowd than we have in the past. It's already tending to come. Grand Island's doing a great job of hosting. They've been really welcoming. They even like the Grand Iron Tourism Group. Their director has like a huge Bigfoot in their office, so they're real excited for the Bigfoot conference coming up. So it should be fun.
What's the cost?
It is, if you pay $60, you get everything. Otherwise it's $25 a day and the movies are $10. There's,
How far from Omaha?
it's about a little over 2-hour drive.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not too bad.
Right.
There's a lot of hotels nearby. There's a lot more food options. I think we have a couple companies, I think Subway, I know pizza, we're gonna have pizza available. There'll also be, Fauner Park has their own food available too. And there's also gonna be that last couple of years, we've had Special Scoops ice cream come out, and they have a food truck, and they give you 2 scoops of ice cream that are like the biggest scoops of ice cream you've ever seen.
Hell, I'll be coming for ice cream.
It is excellent ice cream.
No, I won't be there. I'm gonna be.
Come on, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay, watch out for the.
Yep.
All right, you're done?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
2-hour drive.
You guys.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, our next meeting's gonna be, I'll just look at the thing here. It's like May 18th. For the people who are coming here in person, there's gonna be a chess tournament going on, so we'll probably be in the big lecture room right down the hallway. So, hopefully everything else will work out good. Do we have any, questions? Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to say something when you're done talking about the upcoming meeting next month. I wanted to say something in reference to a bunch of balloon UFO sightings.
Yeah, go for it. You can go right now.
Okay, I just want to shake everybody's memory back to, I want to say it was perhaps like 2010. There was a huge ordeal over Manhattan, New York City. Every single television station was covering this. It was hard to miss this news because then several affiliate stations across the United States were playing this coverage. And what it was a UFO sighting that several hundred people had called in to the police and other authorities, this sighting. All the TV stations had footage of this, and it truly looked like, it sort of appeared like a bunch of balloons, but it was a very specific shape that you would be hard pressed to think that a bunch of balloons would be, first of all, silver in color, And second of all, stacked the way they were. So after a whole day of, because it was supposedly seen at like 10 in the morning, 10 or 11 in the morning. And so after a whole day of this coverage, by the 5, 6 o'clock news in Manhattan, they were reporting and denouncing this as some first grade elementary school teacher had come forward and said that one of her students was having a birthday party and that these balloons were accidentally released from this birthday party. Well, now flash forward a couple of weeks more. Nothing else is said about it. It's been debunked. You know, some teacher came forward. Well, guess what? Every news station in Manhattan, in the New York City area, was trying to track down who this supposed first grade elementary school teacher was. There is no such person. So this was, you know, an attempt to smother the story and to debunk the whole sighting as absolutely nothing. So that was really, really interesting to me. And frankly, I didn't really know what to make of that whole incident. However, flash forward another several years. This was just a few years ago when the huge flap was going on in Kansas City. In fact, Roger and I went to a meeting that was attended by probably 250 people. It was a MUFON meeting put on by the KC MUFON team. And it was because people in Kansas City were scared. Lots of people were seeing things. And we just thought, Roger and I thought it'd be a really interesting meeting. And so we went down there to this meeting. Well, guess what? Another one of sightings that was reported over Kansas City, and Margie Kay showed us a picture of it. It was this exact same balloon-looking structure. Silver balloons, like stacked up, almost in like a pyramid sort of shape. And it was identical to that New York City sighting, you know, from years ago. So anytime I now hear of something that was supposedly a bunch of balloons, I absolutely think it is definitely some sort of UFO from some other dimension or some other planet. So don't believe these stories debunking the bunch of balloon looking UFOs. That's it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder, so is this just something that you've been thinking about, or have you heard anybody else cover the balloon stuff?
No, I was, I had kind of let it go. But I remembered it because I was kind of watching the news all day that day, because it was just so fascinating to me, you know, that these balloons were over, you know, and I don't even know if I had started attending our MUFON meetings yet. So it might have been prior to 2010, actually. But you know what, if I Googled, Manhattan balloon UFO, you guys can do that. It'll tell you the date and it'll show you the coverage, unless Google has taken it down or YouTube, but it should be there to get the precise date. But it struck me as odd, you know, that they couldn't find this supposed teacher. And so it was just kind of something in the back of my mind. It's something that wasn't something that I was doing any serious investigation about. But then when I saw what Margie Kay had at that Kansas City meeting, some video, and I don't know if it was video or just still pictures of the balloon type of craft seen over KC. I just in my mind, I was like, oh my God, this is the same thing I've seen before, you know? And that just convinced me that, and her meeting, she had so much to cover. It's not like she even went into any detail about that particular UFO sighting by several different people in KC. That was just one bleep in her presentation. But of course, that immediately took me back to the New York City event. So yeah, it's not like I kept digging into this or anything. It just happened to come up, you know, when we were at that KC meeting.
Yeah, I just wonder, I was looking up the UFO reporter George Knapp. I feel like this would be something that maybe he would want to cover, doing his investigations and stuff.
Well, I'm sure he was aware of it, being George Knapp, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't heard anything.
Well, he's in Nevada. He's in Nevada. I mean, the coverage was on the news. Like, I guess the news coverage that started here in Omaha was like the noon news. So we were already covering what Manhattan was releasing by noon. And I believe it was like 10:30 or 11 in the morning when all the TV crews in Manhattan were out there filming it, you know, and doing interviews with witnesses and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess,
so by go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, so by noon here in Omaha, for example, of our newscast, we were showing the footage, and then by 5 o'clock, it was a first grade teacher's birthday party, you know, from her class, but yet they could never find this teacher. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think when they come out with that first headline, like, oh, it's figured out, it's a UAP, or, it's, like they have an explanation for it. If they can cover it for like 24 hours, then it just kind of disappears. And
right. And that's exactly,
yeah.
Right. That's it.
Well, we're being honored by Mitch. One of my cases that we talked about, he's in Valley. He saw the cloud, and that was kind of like a funky cloud with vents and things of that nature. And so he's sitting here right with us right now. So, but he said,
do you want to share your experience?
Yeah. You want to talk about? Come on.
Yeah, we're open. This is kind of free time. We'd probably wrap up or something, but yeah, we'll, if you want to, you don't have to share it on here. We could just talk in person too.
Hey, you guys, one quick thing about the silver balloon thing. If you think about it, why in the world, if there was a birthday party for one of a first grade student, why would they have silver balloons? You know, you'd have pink and green and blue and, all the colors of the rainbow or something. You wouldn't necessarily be buying silver balloons for a first grader's birthday party. It just doesn't even make sense if you think about it.
Maybe they like silver. You never know. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Mitch Paling, and I'm 57. Just over a year ago, I was at home, and my wife and I are avid sky watchers. We watch the weather as it's coming in. We love to watch the hawks, eagles, and even the turkey vultures when they're flying around town and everything. I live in Valley. And I walked outside for a cigarette and just happened to look up and notice a very strange cloud formation off to the north of my house. And there was a weather front coming in that was from east to west across the horizon, just a straight line of clouds slowly coming up from the south. But just to the north of home, I could see clouds in just a perfect dome shape forming like condensation over something super cooled. And it would go over a dome, and then it was just slowly coming straight off the sides and then evaporating back up. And then I could notice there were two jets that on the very north side of it were kind of attracting the stuff off the top of the dome to it and becoming a lot thicker and wider, but blowing off into points. But there was no sound or anything. And because I live in a spot that's the holding pattern for SAC, And like I said, I could not see any object there. I could just see the vapor interacting with it. It made me really nervous that not being able to tell how high this thing is, how large it is, or what it actually is. If a plane comes through, whether it's civilian aircraft or a plane in the circle or holding pattern for SAC, something could impact it. But normally, as soon as I see anything outside, whether it's birds or anything else, I go straight in and yell for my wife to come take a look, because she really likes to watch the birds when they're soaring. And instead, I just stood there for right out of half an hour watching this thing. And I don't even think I took a step. I just stood there staring up and watching this until the clouds moved in from the south and covered it up, which is not really common for me. Like I said, I mean, normally I would have gone right in. If I'd go in to get my wife to just see a single hawk circling in the sky, something like this.
The cloud stationary?
Yeah, the cloud did not move from where there was a tree off to the west side of where I was looking. I was looking northeast to where the cloud was. And then there's power lines and other trees off to the east of where I was looking. And it stayed absolutely stationary the entire time I was watching until the clouds came and covered it up, which was also really, just really strange. But the strangest part of it all was as soon as the clouds covered it up and I couldn't see it anymore, the hairs on the backs of the hairs on the back of my neck and on my arms just stood up, and I felt like I was being stalked by something. I mean, there was never any noise. There was never anything at all that I could perceive as a threat, but I immediately went off of my deck to look between the houses off the side of my retaining wall to see if there was some sort of an animal or something there that could be, a threat. And looked all around and then went straight back inside. And as soon as I got inside, it would have been as if I'd had somebody that I was about to get into a fight with or something. I went inside, locked the doors up, and then jokingly yelled to my wife, if the men in black show up, don't answer the door. But then I pretty much just stayed inside the rest of the day.
What did your wife say after you said that?
She laughed a little bit, and then she wanted to know what I saw, and I told her everything about what I'd seen and everything. And then she asked me, well, why didn't you come get me? I didn't have an answer for her on that. Like I said, I mean, from the time I saw it, everything until after I'd gone inside, locked everything up, nothing really seemed like how I figured I would naturally react in the situations there. But I did try to report it to NASA. Like I said, I was worried if it was a solid object, as it appeared that the vapor was, reacting with, that it could cause an aerial incident with a jet or one of the civilian planes that flies out. And never got any reaction back from them. I got a standard email telling me that the guy in charge of their UAP project was on vacation. And if they needed anything, they'd contact me. And then I went a few months before all of a sudden it just dawned on my head. I was watching something on Netflix and happened to see a thing for a MUFON program. I've known about MUFON since when I was in high school, back in the 80s. And it was, well, I'll contact them and make my report there. And that was how I met Fred. But I never realized just how hard it would be to describe something that you can't actually see. And not think anybody that hears me even trying to do this is going to just think I'm a crackpot. I'm out, But there's, I can only say what I saw and what I felt at the time. And the thing that interested me the most was to find out if anybody else had had similar experiences. And then to think about it, I've spent my whole life knowing that anybody that talks about UFOs you've got 95% of the population immediately thinks they're crazy, they're a crackpot, or they were on something. Now, all of a sudden, the government's admitting that they've got task forces that, instead of just trying to, like Project Blue Book and everything, that are actually investigating these things, but they've spent 50 plus years, 70 plus years gaslighting everybody about it and trying to make anybody that said anything about it, it looks like they're crazy.
Yeah.
So, but I was just, like I said, I've always thought about all of this kind of stuff and everything, but like probably the majority of the population, if you don't know exactly what you see, don't say anything, because you're going to be made to look like you're crazy. Well, funny thing about that is I've never really cared all that much about what anybody thought about how I looked on something. Either I'm telling the truth or I'm not. You can decide whether I am. And
Into the right group.
Tell about what you know over the time that you're using.
oh, since shortly after talking to Fred about it and telling him everything, at the time when I was telling him, and that was 3 to 4 months after the incident had actually happened, I believe. I could picture everything in my mind when I would think about it, and it would just be like a video of the thing happening. I mean, almost not photographic, but even if I would look up into that spot, I could picture it and see everything happening. And within about 3 to 4 weeks after talking to Fred about it, and just before I think we had the Zoom meeting that I watched you present everything, the memory started becoming more like still frames. I couldn't really see the motion of the vapor or anything else. And I've never really had an issue like that before, where a memory kind of changes. It's always just when I remember things either as they happened or from when I was way back in my childhood. I remember almost like snapshots of things, but I've never consciously observed a memory going from motion to the snapshot type thing like it has. And I was also kind of wondering if anybody else has experienced anything like that with their experiences. And
the whole idea though, too, Mitch, I mean, I kind of mentioned to you like you were in a trance state, and you mentioned that you just stood there for 25, 30 minutes. Just now, I don't think you even moved. You didn't even think about cigarette. You didn't think about anything else.
no, I don't think I did either. Like I said, I don't believe I moved my feet, and that's normally I consciously move myself around so I don't stiffen up. I was involved in a car accident when I was in high school, a pedestrian car accident, where I was unfortunately the pedestrian, and I've got bad knees, I've got some back and neck issues, and normally I move around all the time just to keep everything limbered up and loose. And I think for the half hour to 35 minutes that I saw this thing, if one of the neighbors would have drove by, they would have thought maybe I was in some sort of a fugue state or something, because I don't think I looked around or noticed any sounds or anything in the neighborhood for the whole time.
Not you did say you hear the birds or whatever else, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I was just completely fixated on the strange, and immediately it was just like, what could be so cold? Because I'm watching the vapor form and then fall off. There was never a thought of clouds forming or anything else. It was just what could be so cold in the sky that it's causing that vapor to form and then, trail off.
Did you feel anything, Mitch, when the cloud went over? Did you feel a shift in your body other than you being stopped? I mean, was there
No, as soon as I could not visibly see it anymore, it was just almost like a switch went, and I felt like I was being hunted or stalked. Like I had a dangerous dog that I could see coming at me, or somebody was looking at me with ill intent or something. It was almost as soon as I couldn't visibly see the cloud anymore or the vapor anymore,
So that object was like mesmerizing, you know, like again.
Yeah, and as soon as it was out of sight,
Right.
then,
So that was almost like a triggering thing, like it kept you, you know,
Yeah.
in that state of trance, you know, something of that nature. So that's why I kind of feel like there might have been even some sort of experience that you're going through, you know, that you don't, I mean, you're gone for almost 30 minutes, you know, from that point on, you know, that you, and if it was cloud, it would be moving, you know, it would go with the wind, you know, or whatever. I think the wind's, I mean, there was a storm coming up, so everything's, it was, I think
Well,
very
that was
calm.
the whole thing too, was, you know, I'm looking at it and the two jets. And I would expect if it was something for, I've always been really interested in aircraft, spacecraft and everything else. Just science fiction and science and everything has always been my, you know, my big interest. And it was really strange to me to see that these jets weren't 90 degrees to each other or 180 degrees to each other. They were more like 70 degrees apart. And it was like, so it would be like, to be evenly spaced around, you would have to have like 5 jets instead of 4. And that just seemed really strange. But the two jets were exactly opposite of the direction the clouds were coming up from. So I was just assuming that it's holding itself in place with these little streams of pressure or whatever's pushing the vapor away.
So what, I mean, have you ever thought about what would cause those objects to stay there for 30 minutes stationary?
I hadn't even really thought about it. A couple of years ago, my wife and I, we were out watching the buzzards, and this was at 2:30 in the afternoon. I was working nights at the time on the Google project, construction. But at like 2 something in the afternoon, as we're watching the buzzard circling and everything, we noticed a star in the sky. And I was like, this is summertime, it's not winter. You know, we can't see stars in the daylight. Went up because there were no other adults around. It's work day, and most everybody else in my neighborhood works during the day. Went up to the fire department, and the fire chief and one of the other guys happened to be there. It's a volunteer fire department in my town. But I got them to come out, and I says, look, I need some other adult beside my wife to see this thing because it's still there. And they both looked up, and the fire chief went in, and he said, you know, I got to make a call. He called National Weather Service, which is stationed right there in Valley, and they said it was a loon balloon from Alphabet. And sure enough, I brought up Flight 24, or, yeah, and there are the tail numbers for it. Or, you know, the numbers would normally be on, and it lists the altitude that it's at. And over the next 5 or 6 days, we tracked it. I could actually see it at night when I was at work. And instead of being almost straight up and a little east from where I was at off of 370 and south of Millard, I had to look almost straight north to see it. But just after sundown, it started to move a little bit to the east, and then it moved at a little bit more rapid pace back to the west. And then where I was working, I couldn't see anything anymore, but I started watching it on flight radar, and I watched them track it all the way up to the North-South Dakota borders and Minnesota. And there were 3 of them, and they all came down within a 19-hour period of time. And that's when I found out that they were ending their program with them. But this thing was a tennis court sized Wi-Fi array hung under a giant balloon. And that was the only thing I'd ever seen that stayed in. When we saw it, it was not moving. So I just assumed that if it's sitting there, it's there for a reason, to either monitor something or to relay something. But like I said, for the size of the area that was being affected with the condensation, it wasn't a little balloon, or it wasn't even a big balloon. And as I said, even when I started talking to Fred, the first thing I tried to do was, for probably about 5 minutes, was, this is going to sound really crazy because I'm trying to make or explain a sighting where I couldn't really see anything. I could just see stuff interacting with something that I couldn't see. And
That's true. Yeah, it's just a form, you know, that it's there, but the condensation going over the.
yeah, and I wasn't, so in effect, what I saw was, all I could report was a cloud slowly forming over something and dumping off. But there was so much vapor that you could see a perfect shape. And I mean, imagine taking a crystal bowl, turning it upside down, putting a lump of dry ice or something on it, and as that vapor comes over it, and then going into the computer and taking out the crystal bowl and the lump of dry ice. So all you could see was the vapor. You're going to be able to see the perfect shape. If you put it here, you can see the perfect shape of the bowl in that vapor as it's coming off and everything. But there's nothing else there to see.
Was there a cathode on top of it, like a little dome on top of it?
Nope, it looked pretty much absolutely smooth. You could actually see the ripples across it of the vapor as it was forming. And that's why you could see that it was being drawn on the front side, on the north side, to the two jets.
So was the height of this bowl, was it high or long, elongated out?
It was a little bit flatter instead of being a perfect dome of a circle. It was
I'm just gonna.
probably about 2/3 of the height of a good circle. But I mean, perfectly oval, because you could literally watch, except for where the two jets were, you could just watch the vapor just start to fall off in a straight line down.
What about the vents that were outside?
Well, because of, I figured that it had to be really far away, because it looked like they had to be really pushing a lot of air, but there was no sound. And that's, I mean, even when a jet is flying over, going from New York to Los Angeles, and it flies over here, you still hear a sound. If something, you may hear it and it may sound like it's 15 miles behind where the jet is. When you finally hear it, you still hear it. And this was something that, I mean, I'm used to hearing all sorts of stuff because we've got the railroad tracks run right through the north end of town. And, I mean, you can hear just when they release the air off of the brake systems, you hear the high pitched little kind of a snapping, sound and everything. I understand that it was north of me and the jets were pointed away, but still I should have been able to hear something. I thought that, but then again, it didn't seem that unnatural because I couldn't see anything. So why should I hear something? Which,
But in your case, I found extremely irrational. Again, if you running out thinking you're being stalked, you ran back into the house. Not only do you shut the door, you lock and.
yeah, that it was
on top
both the deadbolt and the door locked as soon as I walked inside. And I wouldn't even do that if I had somebody in my front yard yelling at me and acting like they wanted me to fight. I'd walk inside, push the door shut, and I might lock the door handle. But when I went back inside, like I said, I went inside and I felt like I felt like something was coming. And that's when I jokingly, trying to poo-poo everything off, told the wife, yeah, if the men in black show up and knock on the door, don't open it.
That's what really catches my eye, my perception, again, it's almost like, could you think, like, here's this big saucer, maybe like a craft saucer, where it kind of comes down and rolls on.
For some reason, because of the smoothness of it and everything and not being able to see anything, I had in my mind, I was thinking, not that I was seeing it, an invisible craft that it was coming off of. I kind of just felt like it was some sort of a shield around something. because it was so smooth for the way that everything was moving off. I'm not used to even, like I said, I've always been fascinated, built a lot of models and everything. I love military aircraft. I love civilian aircraft, rocketry and everything else. But you never picture anything as being absolutely smooth that's man-made.
Have you seen anything like this before in your life?
No, not even the clouds that are building up over the mountains that are being domed up or thunderheads or anything else.
Once in a lifetime.
Yes. Yep. Like I said, it would be. I had fought for a couple of days before we talked, before you and I actually talked, trying to figure out how to make on a computer image, a 3D thing. There's all sorts of different ways to make the oval shape that I could see the top half of. But then to get the vapor and everything over it and all that, it just was. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a once in a lifetime. I can't say that I hope it's a once in a lifetime thing, but I'm 57 and it's only happened to me once in my life. And it was right there where I've lived my entire life. I mean, right now I live 1 block north of the house that I grew up in.
What about the time you just told me right now, but you sitting up and driving something?
I've had a couple of experiences. I'm not a sleepwalker. I'm not a sleep talker or anything else. A couple of experiences when I was younger where my friends told me that in the middle of the night, they woke up because I was talking. And they said that I was sitting on my bed like I was flying an aircraft, talking to somebody on the radio. And I mean, my feet were moving like I was using rudder pedals. My hands were like I was holding on to a flight joystick and everything. And they said that I was doing that for about 35, 40 seconds. And then all of a sudden, just slowly, and they said it looked like I was sitting in a chair because my back was at an angle like this to the bed. So I had to have all the muscles and everything all tensed up. Granted, I had less of a stomach to fight with back at that time, but, and then I quit talking and just slowly settled back down onto the bed and was out again. And then probably 4 or 5 months later, a different friend that was spending the night said that I did pretty much the exact same thing. And probably a couple of years after that, my mom all of a sudden was telling me about one night when she woke up because she caught herself talking. And she was answering a question and she didn't know who had asked the question. And she looked over to my dad, and my dad doesn't talk in his sleep or anything. She said that he was talking in his sleep. There was a 5 or 6 inch luminous, but you could still see through it, orb just off of his forehead. He answered 2 questions and then it slowly went up and up through the floor, up above him.
Up through the ceiling?
Yeah, which would have been into my bedroom.
Whoa.
Because in the house, the living room and their bedroom were here. My bedroom was directly above the 2 rooms.
So not only you're having experiences, your mom and dad are having experiences, don't realize it maybe.
She always chalked it up to just being a really strange dream.
Of course.
But like I said, I mean, that's nobody in the house really has. My dad doesn't believe in anything paranormal at all.
You didn't?
The only thing, well, he doesn't today.
Okay.
He believes in the afterlife, but he doesn't believe in ghosts because the afterlife is where you go to after you pass and you're no longer here.
Right.
My mom is a little bit more like me in that she's always enjoyed science fiction and everything. And I think that's just her way of dealing with it, is it didn't really happen. It was just a dream. Or if it did happen, it was hallucinations from being mostly asleep.
And that's what most of us do. We just pass it off. It's just a dream, nothing to worry about. It's just something that you wake up and here's this form.
Yep.
Oh, you bad. And they're answering questions.
Well, and that was what was really funny was she said, you know, that she woke up answering a question and she was like, why am I talking and answering, you know, why am I saying this? And then she turns and looks over and my dad's answering a question about something. And my dad's doesn't watch anything science fiction at all. He's mostly a history guy.
Right.
He's a lineman and retired. Now he's just a fisherman. But he's just a no nonsense guy. He's the kind of guy that if you tell him you saw something like that, then he's just going to tell you outright, well, whatever he'd heard back from the 60s and 70s when he was growing up, that you saw swamp gas or an airplane that you didn't, you know, was farther away than you thought, or a weather balloon or something like that. Get over yourself, you know.
Yep.
But that's like I said, that's all the paranormal stuff. I've never really thought much about it. I think the majority of it is our own mind trying to make sense of something that's going on. And but if you don't have an explanation, or if your mind doesn't have an explanation for something that's going on, I have a strange fear that then your imagination will fill in the gaps and put in. So I hate the idea of saying things that sound crazy, because I think, well, then somebody's just going to say, yeah, well, your imagination is just filling in the gaps. But like I said, at the time that it happened, my main fear was if there is something there that can interact with the clouds, what happens if another plane tries to occupy the same space? And if I hadn't said something and tried to report it, and for any reason an aircraft crashed out in that area, whether it be from SAC or from Millard Airport or anything like that, I would have felt like I was responsible for not having said something. But at the same time, I was all worried because, okay, they're going to think that I'm either nuts, or if nothing's showing up on their radar and everything, they're just going to some sort of a temperature inversion from some.
Yeah. Well, you just reported what you saw. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, it's like. Oh, yeah, thanks for sharing.
Sorry I went on so long.
No, you're great. We still got right on time here. 11:56. But yeah, we're always open to hear new experiences. So if anybody has any other experiences, just send me an email or bring it up at the meeting, and if we have time, we'll cover it. Or if you want to do a presentation on something, we have people come up and do presentations on different ideas they have too. So, but yeah, with that, I'll wrap up the meeting. Next meeting is gonna be May 18th, so everybody knows. And we'll be in the CPAX building, probably down the hall. There's a big lecture room. We'll have a arrow or something pointing in that direction. So thanks for joining us.